Welcome to the May 2025 edition of the Inside Nutley Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco. Today's guest is Jason Lipshutz, the Executive Director of Music at Billboard Magazine. Jason has written about music for over a decade and penned cover stories on such artists as Taylor Swift, U2, Blink-182, and Mumford Sons, to name a few. He has appeared on Access Hollywood, Good Morning America, Entertainment Tonight, and is the author of It Starts With One, The Legend and Legacy of Linkin Park. Jason has been a Nutley resident for almost 10 years, and his Billboard biography proudly states, Nutley Forever. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me. I forgot I have Nutley Forever in my official Billboard biography, but I do indeed.
We'll get to that in a while. So, that won't go on untouched, though. Don't worry about it. Let's start. As I mentioned in the intro, you have interviewed and written about some of the biggest musical stars in the world. Let me start by asking you this. Who was the most intimidating interview ever?
Intimidating. That's a really good question. It was probably somebody when I first started because, I've obviously interviewed bigger artists over the course of my career, especially like as I rose up the masthead and got to interview some of the biggest artists in music. But at that point, I wrote a cover story on Taylor Swift in 2019, but at that point I had been doing what I've been doing for many years. And so it wasn't like a kind of nervousness. I'd already met her. I had already, interacted with her. And so I guess it would probably be someone early in my career. And I'm trying to think of somebody who, my first cover story was on Bon Iver, which is, the indie folk project of Justin Vernon. And I knew that had a chance to be my first cover story. And I think I was pretty nervous about that. I mean, I was like, I can't mess this up. This has to this has to go well, and it did go well. But yeah, it was definitely when I was like 23 and still figuring things out.
All right, let's go back to the time machine. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Philadelphia and raised in Voorhees, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia in South Jersey near Cherry Hill. Spent my entire childhood there and became a big Philadelphia sports fan and still go to Philly a huge amount. I mean, I spent my whole high school and college going to shows in Philly, got really into music as a high schooler. And yeah, so I loved South Jersey. It was great living in South Jersey. It's funny because my life now is pretty similar to my upbringing in the sense of living in the Jersey suburbs right outside of a huge city. When I was growing up, it was outside of Philly, and now in Nutley, it's outside of New York City. But it's wonderful to be able to go into the city and experience city life, but also kind of retreat to a suburb that I love. So yeah, I had a great childhood.
You realize we have to cut this interview short now because you're an Eagle fan, right?
I know. Listen, I mean, it's funny because my number one team is the Sixers. I'm a huge Sixers fan and also a big Eagles fan. I actually went to the Super Bowl a couple months ago, which was a wonderful experience. I grew up. My dad still has Eagles season tickets. We and grew up going to a lot of heartbreaking playoff losses during the McNabb era. But yeah, I mean, it kind of waxes and wanes, right? Because right now the Eagles are in a great spell. When I was in high school and college, that's when Eli was working wonders with the Giants, and I was a very sad Eagles fan. And now I'm kind of a tortured Sixers fan as the Knicks just went on this huge playoff run. So I'm like, well, it's a lot of give and take.
All right, so then you go to the College of New Jersey.
Yes,
Tell me
yeah.
about that experience.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. It's funny because I grew up in South Jersey, and my family and I used to go up to New York a handful of times per year. Really loved New York, and my dream was to go to NYU. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was growing up. I was a writer. I knew it was going to be something with writing, and I knew I was going to be an English major just before I could figure it out. And my dream was to go to NYU, and I toured a couple other schools. Like I was applying to NYU. I toured a couple other schools, um, while, during the college application process. And one of them was TCNJ. And I didn't really know anything about it. And I just loved it. I loved the atmosphere. And yeah, it was a great experience. And so anyway, so I got into NYU and I got into TCNJ. And NYU, even with a small scholarship, was going to be like an outrageous bill. So it was either go to NYU and come out of college with a ton of debt, and or go to TCNJ and come out with very little debt. And so I was like, well, I kind of loved TCNJ. I had this lifelong dream of going to NYU, but like this place seems great as well. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And anyone who's listening to this thinking about the College of New Jersey, I will be the first one to highly recommend it. I go back for Accepted Students Day a good amount, and to talk to journalism classes, and it was truly transformative.
Did you always want to be a journalist, or did that come to you when you were in college?
Yeah, it came to me when I was in college. I actually entered TCNJ with an English major and a creative writing minor. And just because I knew I wanted to do something with writing, but I had no idea what. Like, I was on my school newspaper in high school. Obviously journalism, I was thinking about it. I was actually way more into movies than music in high school. I was kind of reviewing movies for our school paper. I was the head of the literary club in high school, so there was like kind of like a me writing bad poetry that was part of what I was interested in. And I could always see myself as an English teacher because I enjoyed English class a lot as well. And in during freshman year of college at TCNJ, I got really into music, as a lot of freshmen in college do, but I also got really into music criticism, and this was when uh, the blogosphere was kind of at the height of its power in terms of Pitchfork Media and Stylus Magazine and Spin Magazine and Rolling Stone. And I got really into like reading album reviews every day, doing deep dives on, you read a list of like the 100 best albums of the 1970s. I read every single like capsule write up of each album. I went back and explored each album, and I got really into it. And I thought like, oh, actually, like this could make sense being a music journalist. And so I changed my minor from creative writing to journalism. And that was freshman year. And my sophomore year is when I started looking at internships in the city, and I started doing that the second half of my sophomore year, interning into the city, taking the train from Hamilton to Penn Station on Tuesdays and Fridays every week, and interning along with my classes. And that's kind of how it all got started.
Wow. Was music always a big thing in your family growing up? I mean, were you a big music fan?
Yeah, it's funny, like I was always just really more obsessed with movies than music. And it's funny because like music was pretty present as well. Like I would go to concerts. I really enjoyed that experience. My dad would had a bunch of records. We would listen to the radio a lot. The funny thing is like more than anything, I grew up, especially when I was a preteen and then an early teenager, going at watching MTV and watching Total Request Live. And I loved pop music. Like that was the thing, is like a lot of my friends, or at least I should say some of my friends, were like very kind of rock purists listening to alternative radio. But a lot of my good friends were like listening to Backstreet Boys and listening to Britney Spears, and like we didn't care. Like none of us were like ashamed to be like, oh, we like all like the teen pop stuff, because it was such a great time for that stuff, and the songs were incredibly catchy. So I don't think I ever really considered it. I was just like, in the same way that like I'm a huge Sixers fan, but I never was like considering like going into writing about basketball or anything like that. I was just always kind of paying attention to popular music, watching the Grammys, paying attention to big hits on the radio. Like I was kind of aware of all this stuff, but college was kind of the first time where I was like, oh, I could turn this facet of my personality into something professional.
What was your first concert?
First concert, seventh grade. I went to see Weird Al Yankovic with my dad and my friend. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. And then my second concert was Green Day at in Camden, New Jersey, at the old Tweeter Center. And that one was kind of the one that like also with my dad, and that was kind of the one that unlocked some stuff for me.
It's a great feeling that dads like us could pass that on to our children. Those are the kinds of things us dads live for, you know? I'm sure your dad did too.
Oh yeah, I mean it was we once I started at Billboard, we started go. I mean I went to a lot of shows with him growing up, and then I would mix in shows with my friends, and then shows with him, and but we when I once I started at Billboard, one of my favorite festivals is Pitchfork Music Fest in Chicago, indie rock festival, but had some kind of pop and rock and other kinds of music. And we had some family in Chicago as well, so he would come with me. I probably did it 7 or 8 times. He and I would fly out together and go to Pitchfork Music Fest together, and I would write about it. The first year he didn't know I was doing this, but I wrote my recap of like experiencing all this like kind of hipster indie rock with my dad and getting his take on things. And he loved it. And then we started writing recaps together, and it was kind of a gimmick that people seem to really like for a lot of years. So yeah, it was fun.
That's amazing. That's great. Take me through your career path from college to Billboard.
So my first internship at TCNJ, my sophomore year, I applied to a bunch of different internships, and two of them got back to me, and I arranged to interview with them for the internships on the same day. Because, again, I was in Central Jersey. I had to take the train up from Hamilton. So I was just like, I'm going to do one of these interviews in the morning, one in the afternoon. So the one in the morning was for this world music magazine called Global Rhythm. It was kind of a small publication, but they were covering a lot of different styles of music, and I was like I said, interested in being a music journalist. So interviewed with them, very laid back interview. The guy was like, "Yeah, you seem good for this. Like, we'll let you know." But it seemed like it was going to work out. The second interview was at 17 Magazine, and we went to the Hearst Building, uptown, which was an incredibly intimidating building. It still is to me. It's gorgeous, and I was like, this is not right for me at all. Like, what am I doing at 17 Magazine? I had long hair, I had a bigger beard back then, and I was honest in the interview for the internship. I was like, look, like I don't know anything about like teen girl fashion and beauty. I'm interested in music and entertainment, but I'll show up and I'll do my best and do a good job. And figuring that like this is never going to happen. And the 17 got back to me more quickly, and they offered me the internship. And I remember sitting at my parents', this was during Christmas break, I guess, sitting at my parents' kitchen table, and they were like, people know 17, like you should do 17. This will look good on a resume. And so I was like, okay, I'm an intern at 17 Magazine. So that was a very, very fun semester. I was definitely a fish out of water, and I was the web intern. So I was like proofreading different web articles. This was in 2008, and it was, the whole team was very, very supportive of me. But yeah, I stuck out. at the 17th floor in the Hearst building. And then from there, I after that semester, the summer after sophomore year, did some freelance work, did some concert reviews for a couple different places. And then before my junior year, Billboard Magazine needed an intern. And back then in 2008, Billboard was not nearly what it is now. It was almost primarily the charts. There was very, very small editorial footprint. And so I was like, I don't know, like the charts, like I wanted to work with like Pitchfork and Spin, and I was listening to a lot of indie music, so that's what I wanted to do. but I got in the building at Billboard, and that 17 magazine internship did pay off. I remember in the interview for Billboard, them being like, "Oh, 17, oh, okay." And so I loved it at Billboard. It was not only because I was surrounded by all of these experts who were incredibly encouraging, some of whom I still work with today, but also because and was able to get bylines because they entrusted me to do, write small features and news stories and whatnot. But also, I really liked getting to learn about all these different types of genres because back then, even in the late 2000s, Billboard was covering Latin music when no one else was. They were covering country music in a much more kind of thorough way than anyone else was, as well as pop and R&B and hip hop and rock. And so I just really gravitated toward that breadth of knowledge. And I interned at Billboard for a full year. They kind of couldn't kick me out of the building. And then my senior year at TCNJ, I was freelancing for Billboard and a couple other places. And then very fortunately, I graduated in May 2010. In about 6 weeks after graduation, I got a call that Billboard was hiring an editorial assistant for the website, and they knew me from my time of interning and freelancing, and so I went in and interviewed and got the job.
Wow, that's an incredible story.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was just, so much of my career, and I guess whoever's listening to this, I hope they take it to heart that like sometimes you just do need that little bit of luck where, if Billboard wasn't hiring an editorial assistant 6 weeks after I graduated college, who knows? Like, I could have used that Billboard experience and moved on to a totally different publication or field of the music industry or field of journalism. But, that opening was there at the exact perfect time for me. And I owe a lot of my career to that.
So much of anyone's success is right place, right time, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it has to be like, as I tell that story, and some people are like, "No, well, you put in the work, and and I was like, "Yeah, I did a pretty good job," but like that, if there were no openings, that wouldn't have mattered in this scenario. So, yeah, I got very, very, very fortunate.
It's funny. I when I was when I was in high school, I worked at a record store. You're talking 1976, right? Billboard was the thing. Like every week, you'd wait for Billboard to come, and you'd look through. Okay, what are the new releases? What's everything on the charts? I worked in an 8-track tape store. That's
Oh,
how
wow.
it was called, the Great Tape Escape in Nutley, obviously. And like every week, everybody would always just wait for Billboard. And it was the industry bible. I published a music magazine for Compact Disc World. It's called Liner Notes. I created it for them. I did it for about 7 years. It was a giveaway when you walked into the store. Um, and being, like you, I was a big music lover. And what I found is that when my hobby became my job, my hobby became less fun. Do you find that at all?
I think to some degree, yes and no. Like, I think what I've accepted, because people ask me this a good amount in terms of like, what do you like? Can you listen to music? And without thinking about it from a professional standpoint, and the answer is no. Like, I everything I'm listening to is pretty much focused on my life and career and how they've intertwined. I mean, I still listen to a ton of music just for myself. But I guess what I'm doing is also thinking about ways in which they can help inform my job. Yeah, it's just, and part of it is also like my job now is so focused on new music that I have to listen to new albums and be up on current music and what are the biggest hits and what are the new releases, and so that takes up just a lot of time and bandwidth. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just I've just sort of accepted it. It is what it is. Like, and I'm fine with it. Like it just if this is the price to pay, where I'm constantly listening to music and thinking about how it can fit into my job, then that's a pretty cool problem to have.
You did a cover story on the biggest star in the world. Tell me about that.
That was really cool. It's funny. I have been um, Billboard's Taylor Swift writer, I guess. I've written the most about her than anyone on our staff, um, just over the years. And, part of it is just being at Billboard for such a long time and writing about a ton of different pop artists, and then, kind of naturally writing more and more about Taylor as she got bigger and bigger. And met her a couple times over the years. Met her at her tours. Yeah, I guess I met her twice before I wrote the cover story, and like spending an hour sitting outside with her and talking about her career up to that point in October 2019 was, I mean, it felt enormous at the time, and it feels even bigger today. It just like, I was talking to someone um, about it maybe like a year or two ago, and kind of reflecting on the fact that I got to do this. And it's like, yeah, you get to like write one of the few cover stories on like a modern day Beatle. Like that's kind of what it is. And I don't take that for granted. So, I still write about Taylor all the time as she keeps doing fascinating new things with her career. I mean, wrote a big thing about her last week. It's fun. Like she has so clearly ascended in her career as a superstar, and an influential artist in modern times. And I've been fortunate to help cover that. It's like obviously I'm a fan and of her music, but also like just as a journalist to be able to kind of capture that full appeal and impact has been really rewarding.
What is it about Taylor Swift that makes her this giant star above like everybody else?
I think the main thing is the music, like, and that's an easy thing to say, but you look at all of these different contemporaries of hers that have not endured, and she has been able to evolve in a creative fashion with a lot of daring and a lot of wisdom. It's interesting because obviously, like, you look back and it seems so easy, but she started as a country artist. She made this enormous leap to pop, and then she explored indie folk, and then she's explored, electronic music and more confessional songwriting, less confessional songwriting, and so she's changed with the times a lot. On the other hand, like you also see how savvy she is as a businesswoman, as a marketer, as someone who just completely understands her fan base and what they want in terms of Easter eggs and different touring opportunities, including the Eras tour, which broke like shattered all these records. She just is incredibly smart, but the foundation is the music. Like it has to be. Like the foundation is like her songwriting, which is incredible, and then the way that she presents it, which is constantly changing and constantly fascinating.
All right, so now let's get to the heavy duty stuff. When did you move to Nutley and why?
The heavy, I like that. Late 2016. My wife and I got married in 2015. We lived in Brooklyn when we got engaged and got married. And in 2016, we just started talking about how we wanted to buy something. And um, we thought about Brooklyn and parts of New York first. And, everything was basically out of our price range that we were thinking about. And so we started thinking about New Jersey because, especially because her family, my wife's family is in Philly, my family is in South Jersey. So New Jersey, North Jersey, outside of New York, and we both work in the city still, would have been really convenient. So we started looking at a bunch of different towns. We had one of my wife's good friends is a realtor out here, and so we looked at probably like 6 or 7 different towns and houses in them. And Nutley was the one we were just like, it was sort of the perfect triangulation of like price range, proximity to the city, and just like vibe in terms of like atmosphere. And I remember driving down Franklin Avenue the first time and being like, oh, this is really nice. Like, this is kind of what we're looking for. And so we found a house, and yeah, we moved in December 2016.
What are some of the things you love most about our town?
So what's been cool is that we have a daughter who's 17 months old, and it's been really really cool being able to, and we also have a dog, so it's been really cool getting to take them to different parks around Nutley. Obviously, especially when we rescued our dog, that was 2019. So we've taken him to a bunch of different parks around. Now with our daughter, we're going to different playgrounds and stuff like that, or at least starting to. So the parks and just kind of like the general atmosphere around there, of the different outdoor spaces are always like really appreciated. And then also like um, the the restaurant, the Nutley restaurant game is no joke.
We've done. I think this is 30 show 32 or 33 of the Inside Nutley, and I'd say about almost half of the interviews are people that didn't grow up here or weren't from here but lived here or spent some time here or moved here or whatever. Um, and the one thing that we find, or I seem to find in all of them, is they all seem to mention that Nutley is kind of omnipresent. That wherever they go, they run into somebody who either is from Nutley or knows Nutley. Do you find that?
Yeah, it's especially the people who are from New Jersey. Um, the speaking of Taylor Swift, the producer Jack Antonoff, who's one of Taylor Swift's closest collaborators. I've interviewed. I've gotten to know Jack for really well over the years, and he's from Jersey as well. And we just talk about how great Nutley is.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I got to get
Uh,
him on the show then.
yeah, he's the best, and he's a huge Jersey guy, and he's always like, yeah, every time I pass Nutley, I think of you, and I think about how great Nutley is. He's like, I'm always passing on the Parkway, and I'm like, yeah, all right. Um, he's great, but yeah, no, a lot of people are from, a lot of people are aware of it. It also just randomly pops up in like pop culture sometimes, which is always fun, and yeah, it's people are aware. People get it.
It's crazy. We tried to get our most famous alumnus, Martha Stewart, on the show several times, but there hasn't been interest. Maybe she does an album with Snoop. She'll come on and promote it, or you
There
could
you
help us.
go.
You could help us get her to come on. How about
Done. Done
that?
and done. Yeah, I didn't know we moved here and we didn't know that she was from here. And then like we found out soon after that. We are like, "Oh, that's pretty cool."
As I mentioned, your bio proudly says Nutley Forever. That's usually something lifelong residents like me say. Why was that important for you to have in there?
Um Probably me being a little bit cheeky. Probably me. I mean, we're here. Like we're here, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon. It's funny because we moved here because I'm from South Jersey. My wife's from Philly. We started dating and got married in Brooklyn. Like we had no ties to North Jersey at all. We basically were just like, this seems nice. Like we'll try it out. We'll see if we want to move somewhere because especially because we were realistic that our jobs were going to be in New York City for the time being, or for the foreseeable future, I guess. And we love it. We just love it so much, and we're I think going to be like lifelong residents at this point. It's really really been a gift to be here, and the people around, like part of it is like, we have a great community around us. We live on a cul-de-sac, and there are a bunch of little kids on our cul-de-sac, and they're like in the street, like riding bikes and playing with each other and running around, and like it's very idyllic, and we really appreciate that, especially as new parents. So yeah, Nutley forever. Yeah, I stand by it.
I'm with you. Nutley Forever. All right, it's our quick hits time. I'm going to throw out a couple of things, and you just tell me what first comes to mind. All right.
Sure. Yep.
Favorite Jersey Shore town.
Wildwood, just because I grew up going there. Although we go now mostly to Asbury, now that we're in the north, but like Wildwood, we spent every summer there growing up. Holds a special place.
Springsteen or Bon Jovi.
Can I tell you, I'm not really a fan of either. For my dad's sake, I'll say Springsteen.
You ever interview either one?
No, no, I've never interviewed either one.
Okay. And I don't know if these next two are worth anything, but you're gonna have to give an opinion anyway. Giants or Jets?
Oh, Jets. I mean, I as an Eagles fan, I hate the Giants. Like I have no feelings about the Jets. Like they seem like truly tortured.
Again, this may not matter here. Yankees or Mets?
Uh, See, I actually do hate both of them. I guess I'll say Mets. I hate I mean, the 2009, the Yankees beating the Phillies was like after we won game one, that was tough. That was really tough. I thought we were gonna win that series, we just did not.
Tell me about your books.
So wrote a book 2 years ago, came out last year called "It Starts with One." It is about the band Linkin Park. Are you a Linkin Park fan?
Yeah, I mean, casual fan. I'm pretty sure I saw them open for Green Day. Did they open for Green Day at the Jet Stadium?
Um, they might have hoped for something. Yeah, I feel that feels right. I was a big fan, and I um, started thinking about writing music books a couple years ago. Started working with an agent who actually lives in Montclair, so kind of kept it local, and started thinking about different book ideas, and I just couldn't believe that there had not been a book. There had not yet been a book written about Linkin Park, which they were so enormous in the 2000s. Their first album sold 10 million copies. They made an album with Jay-Z. Like they had all of these different flashpoints that were so narratively rich to me. And so I wrote a book about them. I spent 2023 writing it. It came out in 2024. And now I'm writing another one on the boy band One Direction, which is is so much fun. It's a blast, yeah, really enjoying myself.
What's your published date for that?
Next one, late 2026, early 2027.
How has Nutley influenced your life?
Um, it's given me a little bit of remove from the city, and I moved here right before I turned 30, and it feels right that I left Brooklyn, where I spent the majority of my 20s, and moved to Nutley, uh, entering my 30s. And it's been great in terms of kind of balance more than anything.
What are you most proud of?
Being a dad, um, which has been it's been almost a year and a half, and it's been the best. It's the best thing in my life.
Fantastic. Jason, thank you so much for joining us on Inside Nutley.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
I hope you had a good time.
Oh yeah.
Thanks again.